Welcome back. If you didn't already know, life is just another task analysis. We're on page 79 in chapter 4, and we're going to talk about latency. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's get started. Measurements based on temporal locus. So we're talking about latency, which just means how long does it take the learner or your client to actually engage in the behavior after the presentation of the antecedent or the stimulus. So how long? Is it 5 seconds, 20 minutes, an hour, right? And then we're going to look at the inter-response time, which just means how much time passes for that learner in regards to two consecutive behavioral responses. Okay, so latency, how long does it take for them to actually engage in the behavior, and inter-response time, how long in between two consecutive responses of behavior for the learner. Inter-response time is important in ABA, especially when we are talking about individuals who struggle to wait to be given the complete instruction, right? Or are off in their own world and don't respond, so the speaker thinks that they're not actually attending or listening to them. So a lot of times I'll be asked, oh, why do I need DRH? Why do we need DRL? So differential reinforcement of high rates of behavior, DRH, differential reinforcement of low rates of responding or behavior. So Cooper talks about how inter-response time, DRH and DRL, are used across schedules of reinforcement, right? So we don't want to keep our learners on an FR1, case you didn't know, right? Because in the real world, they're never going to get reinforced at that rate. So how do we start thinning out those schedules of reinforcement? How would we track what is an appropriate schedule of reinforcement as we are thinning that out? Well, through the inter-response time and tracking through DRH and DRL. Moving on to derivative measures, we have percentages and trials to criterion. So I'm sure you'll come across percentages in your career and you will use them time and time again. So percentage is just 5 out of 10 opportunities would be 50%, right? 1 out of 10 opportunities correct would be 10%. So we're just trying to figure out the percentage that this individual is able to independently complete a task. The problem with percentages in ABA, according to Cooper, is that the smaller the number is, the bigger impact it has, right? So if we're talking about 3, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, when compared to 1 out of 100 and 99 out of 100, right? Makes a huge difference. So what does Cooper recommend in regards to the minimum amount that we would want to have to get an accurate percentage? It's not 10, 30, okay? So page 81, I didn't say it, Cooper did. Applied behavior analysts design measurement systems in which resultant percentages are based on no fewer than 30 response opportunities or observation intervals. Something to think about, right? Trials to criterion just means the number of trials, opportunities, or attempts it took the individual to be able to achieve a certain level of performance. So, did it take 20 times practicing Mary Had a Little Lamb on the recorder before they were able to execute it completely without any mistakes? Did it take 100 Maybe it took 300. So that's going to be different across every individual. But now when they learn, for example, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, you're able to compare the trials that it took for them to learn a new song, and you can see if their skills are actually growing. This can also be used through task analysis. So when you're implementing a task analysis, you would look at the trials to criterion for each step in the task analysis. You can also use duration, rate, or latency. So you can use trials to criterion across other basic measurements when collecting data for your learner. It's going to depend on, of course, your experience, what you've seen, and what you've learned during your fieldwork, but also what you're most comfortable with, because you're the one who's going to be looking at the data, right? So it's just another way to track correct responses. Definitional measures. So we are now moving on to topography and magnitude. Topography just means the form or shape of a behavior. So this is what PE coaches, dance instructors, gymnastics judges look at the Olympics, right? When we're talking about ice skating, all these things are forms, the behavior, right? This is how they determine if they actually executed the move or not. Are they engaging in the correct form? So when it comes to topography, we will use this to see how the behavior is changing when it comes to tantrums, or when it comes to writing, walking, dancing, whatever the case may be, but it is the form. Magnitude. So now we are interested in how loud, how soft, how fast, how slow, how forcefully something is done, right? So the first thing that comes to mind when I learned how to drive, I pushed way too hard on the gas pedal. So the good thing is the car was in park when my dad was teaching me, so it was not a big deal, you know, the engine just revved. But that's something that you would need to make sure that your learner is able to do at the correct magnitude. Singing at the correct magnitude, speaking in public, the correct magnitude. If you're teaching them how to play golf, right, hitting the ball with the correct magnitude. So it can be applied across multiple different behaviors. Magnitude of a problem or maladaptive behavior is equally important. We want to make sure we are either increasing or decreasing dependent on the definition of the behavior, right? So if we're talking about property destruction, we would want that to decrease. Like maybe we can teach to just tap on the furniture instead of forcefully pushing the furniture over, right? Maybe we can teach to request to take a break instead of screaming at the top of our lungs. So these are the types of things that we need to think about when we are creating these treatment plans and looking at what type of measurements do we want to use with our learners. So there you have it, part 2 of chapter 4. Next time, we'll start talking about the methods for measuring behavior. I hope this was helpful. See you all later.